Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and I'm rarely more than an arm's reach away from a good torpedo level or a small level. Now this one I would call a torpedo level. This is more of an electrician's level, but the key factor here is both of these are illuminated. They take two AA batteries, you push a button, and the thing lights up. Now I love both Klein and Milwaukee levels. This is one of my favorite Milwaukees here. This is one of my favorite Kleins right here. Not just because it's orange, but because of the number of choices of vials I've got there. Easy to read. There's plenty of real estate there. I'll get into that in a sec. You can read it from the top. And, you know, it's a good solid chunk of aluminum. Stabila, this isn't a torpedo really. It's just a short level. I've got my larger Stabila back here. But these are just outstanding, and I think we can take a few hints from the design of this that should be incorporated into these, because even though I do a lot of Klein and Milwaukee comparison videos, I often pick a winner. In this case, I'm not going to. There are advantages and disadvantages to both, and I really think the winner is still out there. I don't have a couple of the other lighted kind of torpedo-sized levels, but looking at some pictures, I don't know if those have quite the features I'm after either. But if you could combine these two, then I think you would have a true winner. So first of all, both of these sell for, let's say, $34 plus or minus. Kind of depends on where you get them. Both of them have magnets. The Klein uses a really nice kind of a track system to hold the magnets, so they are slightly recessed. And then there are 4 extremely strong magnets versus the Milwaukee. They've got 3 round neodymium ones that sit flush, and they aren't held in, I don't believe, as tight because of the design of this. This is like forged aluminum or maybe CNC aluminum, CNC machined aluminum to get the form there, ground out all the parts, dropped in the vials. The Milwaukee here is more like that kind of that I-beam aluminum, and Klein makes one similar. This is an I-beam aluminum Klein. No lights here. This is more of a budget one. So it's a great design. Nice, solid, inexpensive, does its job, but no light. And I want a light. Now I have done other things where I've held up lights, you know, trying to get things lit up in the back so I could see, or the front, or the top. You know, in this case, this is kind of odd. The Milwaukee's upside down if you put the magnets down, which is opposite of every other level here. But anyway, you know, trying to light things up to see. And I thought a lighted level, that would do it. The Milwaukee's definitely lighter. If I weigh these things, you can see simply because it's kind of that thinner aluminum with a lot of plastic components just inside that aluminum frame. But what we're looking at here, set the scale, it's on, come on, zero it. This is in grams. I've got 237 grams here. And then if I put the Klein on there, I've got 310 grams. Quite a bit more if I change that to ounces. I've got 10.9 ounces on the Klein and 8.3 ounces on the Milwaukee. Now, let's take a look at those lights. The lights are the reason I want it, and for you know, I don't know, the last few years I've had trouble with both seeing things, you know, high contrast things up close, as well as glare. And that's just because I'm getting older and that's what happens to your eyes. So when I turn both of these on, it basically lights the vials. The big difference right here, if I cut a little bit of light so you can see, is the Milwaukee lights the vials from both sides. You can see there's a light down here and a light here and a light here. The Klein lights them from only one side. And so I'd have to give the win there to Milwaukee because it makes it a lot easier to see that. Let me change some exposure here. See if I can get that to, yeah, there we go. But anyway, it just is so much easier to see, even though, you know, this has a longer vial. I really think it should be longer too. So that's one of the things. I want 2 lights and I want the longer vial. So that's a combination point there. But as you can see, It's easy to see, yeah, sometimes. But here's one of the problems, especially on this 45-degree one. You can actually see the light. The light is really bright. It's right down there. And that, of course, is something that your eye has to compete with, which isn't good. If you hold it straight, you know, you're looking straight down the hole here, you don't see the light. It's really bright right on the edge. Well, actually, I can kind of still see it. It's too bright. It needs to be recessed a little bit more. Whereas the Milwaukee's, there's only one, and that's this one here that I can actually see the light bulb easily. The rest of them I can't. If I turn it way over here, I think I can barely see it in there. But this Klein one on that 45, that's the light bulb. It's brilliant right there. You could read with that. So that's a problem. I can see the light bulb here. It's not as invasive as that one is, but that's a no-go for me, because there's a huge difference in being able to read this easily under certain conditions if I'm not competing with that light in my face. I do like that it's got the 0, the 90, and the 45, whereas this only has these two. But it would be nice, you might as well go all out, I guess. It's just a couple more LEDs, and the circuit is powering all of them at once. You're not, it's on and off. There's no other controls here. Although it did look like, it seemed like you might be able to turn these on and dim them or something, but I haven't been able to find any features other than on and off. But anyway, so I'd like to see all 3 vials. 4 would be great. I would like to see much bigger vials, like in this Milwaukee here. That is glorious there, and that's another nod from Stabila here, is to have a long enough vial. This Milwaukee, I think the vials are way too short. You can't even get, get the whole bubble out. You can't be a bubble off, because you can't get the whole bubble in there. Look at that. If I tilt it this way, you can, but for just any measurement, and same here, that is just really small, which also is a problem. You're not getting the full effect of the double lighting, so you got way more light in a much smaller space. Klein, you got a much bigger thing here, but only one light source trying to power the whole thing, and you can see just how much of a fall off there is. They're still great. They're 100% better than trying to read one of these in the dark, as you can see. But overall, I'd love to see longer vials, dual lighting, and get those lights a little bit further recessed. Okay, another thing, they're very strong magnets. Now, I do like the strong magnets. In fact, here's an example. Ouch, pinched myself on that. This is incredibly strong. If I put the Milwaukee on here and pull, it's not going to pull that Klein off. If I put this Milwaukee on, still no, but it's close, a little closer. If I put this Klein, which is very similar on, it almost pulled the wrench off. So it's definitely a Klein thing, super strong. That can be an issue. It can be a little bit of a problem trying to get things off. I wasn't even looking at my screen. Yeah, you can see that, right? Yeah, close enough. Let me turn on some more lights now. Crank that up. Okay, so that's one thing. The magnets, I'd rather have strong than weak, and I actually did a video many years ago. I had a little Stabila single bubble level that the magnet was so weak it could barely hold itself. They have since revised that one, probably because of my video, and made a much stronger magnet on the little guy. Okay, what else? This obviously is heavier. If I could choose, I guess I like light, but I like durability. This is a lot of plastic in here versus this is solid metal, but then it has a little rubber button there. Let's go to the back side of these things. Both of them take AA batteries. The Klein is held on with 2 screws here. I'll go ahead and open it up. And in the meantime, while I'm unscrewing these, think about this. Apparently DeWalt has discontinued this, and this is one of my absolute favorite screwdrivers. I've got this one that has the turnable handle, but also the regular straight one. This has got that kind of inertia drive, so I can literally put it in here, hold the button down, and then control the speed. So it's so easy to work. And I'll do the one screw on the Milwaukee. Okay. Anyway, what I was going to say, why don't you go ahead and get ready to join a campaign to, I don't know, sign a petition or something to get this DeWalt back in production, because it is just so nice. Anyone that's used one of these, it's probably their favorite. So, first, when I got these, the Klein, well, look at that. It contains Energizer Max. That was nice of them. They worked. The Milwaukee actually had some of the GB test batteries, and they were dead. They were. I could turn it on. I would get a little flicker. It would just do that, and it would go out right away. So I knew that everything worked, but the batteries were bad. So I've put some of my O-Station, or O-Light batteries. I've got plenty of AA rechargeable, so I can just leave these things on. Although they do have timers that shut them off, so they don't run out. But anyway, if you take a closer look at the design of that case there, I'd have to give the nod to the Milwaukee. I don't know. What do you think? That just seems kind of odd. Let me turn on another light here. What's going on here? It just doesn't look, I don't know, it doesn't look too, actually it looks melted. Maybe that's when they soldered it in the plastic. Kind of interesting. Doesn't give me a lot of confidence there. This is more the battery case I would prefer. Nice, solid, simple. So I have to give the nod to Milwaukee on this. When it comes to, look at this, look at how much reading light there is up on the top. Let me turn both of them on again. Milwaukee, cut some light here. Sorry about all the switching around here. The Klein to me is just easier to read from the top. It would be nice if Milwaukee had a bigger window and a bigger vial. And then if you add that 45 degree, that's nice to be able to read that inside there, inside the little window. So, similar price. I think the Klein, if I had to choose one, I don't know. That's why I ended up with both. I wish that it had bigger vials. I wish that it was lit on both sides. I wish that you couldn't see the light down inside here. I wish the Milwaukee had a little stronger magnet. That isn't very strong. In fact, if I put it on this and wiggle it, you can see that just should not happen there when it's on the center. It just, that's for a level that you're going to be attaching to things. The Klein, I mean, you could hit a baseball bat. Remember the Klein, a baseball with that. The Klein is also a heavier level. So I do like the stronger magnets, and I know Milwaukee can do it with their levels. Anyway, let me know what you think, and I'm happy to talk to Milwaukee or Klein and try to help them design a better level, because I would like to see a lot of tools like this that just make reading in the dark or reading with eyes that are growing old a little bit easier, especially with levels, because it's literally, or maybe even a fold down magnifier, so I could really kind of look up close. Let me grab one. Wouldn't that be nice? If you could just fold something down and then blow it way up. It's going to focus on my magnifier here. And just line that up, because a lot of times I really like to get things, I'm using this, just get it absolutely perfect if I can. Anyway, just some banter about lighted levels, because I really think there's room for, that best one. And right now I haven't found it yet. Let me know your thoughts. And with that, Doc out.